Hey, hi everyone. Welcome back. So guys, as part of the today's session, let us see a brief overview on this particular fixers and what is the advantages with respect to these fixers. So here, if you observe the official documentation, fixers have a number of advantages over before and an after hook, with which what I have understood is the significance of the before and an after hook is a precondition and a post condition. Using this particular fixers, also we can set the pre and a post conditions. By looking into this particular point itself, we have understood that, right? But let us drill down all the details about this particular fixer. So playwright test is based on the concept of a test fixers, and these test fixers are used to establish the environment for each test, giving the test everything what exactly it needs basically. Okay, and test fixers are isolated between the tests, and with the fixer you can group certain tests based on their meaning itself. And if you observe, so far we have been using the page fixer, the context fixer, browser name fixer, and a request fixer. These are all the various fixers that have been using, which we are calling it as a built-in fixer. So depending on our need, we can create a custom fixers as per our need itself. But immediately a question that rises in our mind, the purpose of a hooks and this fixer is one and the same, then why we need this particular fixers? So here, these are the various advantages of a fixers when compared to that of a hooks. The various advantages are, so the fixers encapsulate the setup and a tear down in a same place itself, so that it's easy to write. So if you remember the hooks, basically we have to define a before hook, we have to define a after hook, two different things. Whereas in a fixer, you will be writing everything in a one chunk itself. And here, fixers are reusable between the test file. You will create a one fixer and you will be using across a multiple test files. If you remember, guys, the built-in fixer that we are using, the page fixer, that was a created once, and we are using it in almost all the tests that we are working on. And depending on our need, we can create our own fixer, and we do have a lot of flexibility in creating our own fixers itself. Okay, we do have our flexibility in creating our own fixers, and a couple of things that we need to consider here is wherever you are using that particular fixer, you need to use test.extend basically in order to use that particular fixer. Okay, we need to use that particular test.extends in order to use that particular fixer. Okay, that's fine. Okay, and then so let us see how exactly we can create a customized fixer for us, a simple variable creation and all those things. Let us see right now. So here, what I have done right now here is I created a file with the name as a myfixer.ts here. Okay, I just created a file, and inside the test I have created example spec2.ts. So my fixer is not having any piece of a code. Example dot this particular spec file is having some set of a code. Let me delete it. So here, if you observe, okay, so this is an example one, and if you look at the example two, basically it doesn't have anything. So here my fixer is an empty, example 2 is also empty. So these are the two files that I have created in order to demonstrate this particular example. Now what we will be doing is, let us create a fixer by looking at the official documentation. As per the documentation, they are saying that you need to import the test in order to use it. So here, import, I just want to import. Okay, so correct the spelling, maximize the screen, import. I just want to import a test. So from where you want to import this particular test? Ideally from your Playwright test itself, just to import it. This is what you want to use it. And here, what are we going to do right now? Test as a base. Okay, test as a base. So if you look at the documentation here, they have a given import test as a base. So what is the significance? We are using a test as a base in this particular test. In a simple terms, we can say that wherever you want to use that particular test, you can use a base. Or in another words, I can say that for my test, base is a alias name. Okay, base is an alias name. That's it. And if you look at it, basically base dot extend. So base itself means the test alias. So here we can be using a test dot extend or a base dot extend basically. Okay, that's fine. So import a test as a base. And now here, So we will be defining a simple variable here. So what exactly the type of that particular variable you need to define, we will be defining here. So maybe I'm just defining it as an environmental URL is my type. And here in this particular chunk, I'm gonna define QA URL. And this QA URL is of a string type. So I'm just defining my QA URL is of a string type. If at all you want to define anything else, you will be defining their variable and their type would be defined here. And then now once we need to do here, the next step here is, if you look at the documentation, they have a defined base dot extends. Okay, base dot extend. So here let me write, so base dot extend, and this extend should be working on that particular environmental URL. So here I'm gonna use this base dot extend environmental URL. So this is gonna work on this particular environmental URLs itself. That's perfectly all right. Okay, and now here in this particular chunk, what you need to do, you just need to define this particular fixer value. So which is a QA URL colon. So here I was defining a sync, and here I'm using a use keyword here. So what is the significance of this particular user keyword? We should know, right? So what is the significance of this particular user keyword? We should know. So why are we using this particular user keyword? What is the significance of this particular use keyword? Ideally, this use method is gonna execute your test. So whatever the test that you are creating, this use is gonna execute that particular test that I will show you. And earlier we were getting some issues here. The reason is the spelling mistake. It's gonna be sync. Okay, that's fine. So I have defined it. And now what we are gonna do here is console.log. Okay, console.log before fixer. I'm not writing anything. So console.log before fixer, and I'm just using this particular use method. And for this particular use method is on that particular QA URL. That's fine. Await use this particular QA, use, you no need to use this one as well. Anyways, okay. Await this particular use. And after this one, console.log console.log after fixer. Okay, after fixer. Ideally, what we will be defining here is, okay, a default value QA URL is gonna be, okay, my constant QA URL is gonna be https www dot, okay, www dot bing.com. I have defined it, and this is gonna be on a QA URL. Okay, this use. So what it's gonna happen, whenever you start your test, it will be executing the content before this use, which is a precondition that we are defining out over there. Whenever it comes to the use, it will be executing the content present in the test. Once after the test content execution got completed, this is gonna be an after fixer, which is gonna be a kind of an after hook. That's fine. So I have just defined it. But the thing out over here is this fixer, we need to use it in some other test. If at all you want to use it, basically you need to export it from here, and wherever you want, you just need to import it. So here export constant test is equal to, so my test in this particular myfixer.ts is from this particular customized URL that we have created. Now in your test, instead of importing, okay, in your test, instead of importing this particular test from the Playwright, from where exactly you need to import it? You need to import it from your fixer. So where is your fixer? Basically my fixer is gonna be myfixer.ts. That's it. That's what I have created. So I just wanna use my test from my fixer. The reason is, in my fixer I have been using my Playwright test, and I am just extending my Playwright test with this particular behavior. okay, with this particular behavior. And now here, finally, in this particular test, wherever you have created here, instead of using this particular playwright fixer, what is the fixer that you need to use? So the fixer name that you have been defining. So what was the name that you have been defining out over there? If you look at it, the fixer here that you have defined is a QA URL. So it's gonna be the QA URL. This is what the fixer that you wanna use. And here console.log, okay, console.log my first test, okay, and here the same chunk console.log my second test. That's it, guys. So here what we have done right now in this particular test, whatever this content is there, you are getting from your customized fixer itself. So whatever the content that you are getting it from your customized fixer itself. And for this, whenever this fixer it jumps in, so ideally whatever the content before that would be executed, and then whenever the use comes into the picture, it will be executing this test, and after the use whatever the content is there, that other chunk would be executed. Okay, so this is the way how exactly we can create this whole chunk. Okay, so here this button is not enabling. The reason here is I have given a wrong name. So let me try to rename this particular test. Okay. So let me try to rename this test from here. It should be example2.spec2, right? Example2.spec2, right? And now this got enabled. And let me try to run this particular test from here. And if you look at it, before fixer, my first test, and an after fixer, that's what the order it got executed. Okay, that's what the order it got executed, which is perfectly all right. And okay, this is what the ultimate chunk that it got executed successfully, right? And in general, if at all you want to use that particular variable, right? So here what I want to do right now, so console.log, in this the variable that you have defined in this particular fixer here is the QA URL, right? So if I use this as a QA URL console.log, so when I run this particular test, whatever the bing.com content is there that you have assigned to that, the whole chunk would be retrieved and the whole chunk would be printed down to the console. So this is the way how exactly we can create a simple fixer. In the next session, we will be looking at a couple more examples on providing or creating a customized fixes. Okay, perfectly all right. See you again in the next lecture. Thank you.